this is the last part of the little video devotion Devos with Dusty series that I've been wanting to do. I just called it things you might have missed. Things that when it comes to Jesus, things whether you like don't go to church or you do go to church, or you've been like part of the Jesus movement for a long time, or just kind of like dipping your toes in it, like just simple ideas that are part of this that sometimes can get left out, and they can be sometimes the most important things. And today is going to be no different. So a lot of you may know, but I do martial arts, and so a long time ago I was in a class with my teacher, and we're studying this old sword technique called kiri-sage. That's the fancy Japanese term. And we're doing this technique with these two swords, like two people who like meet each other on the battlefield, and you know they bump into each other, and you're next, and I've got to like cut you down with this sword. And it was decided that we were going to learn this without swords. We were going to learn this concept of this technique through just modern day interactions. And so the teacher like calls me up, and we're gonna simulate this situation, and I'm the guy who is up to demonstrate it on, right? And so I get up and I'm up there, and my teacher is talking, and he turns and he just shoves me. And as I get shoved, I'm kind of shocked, and I'm like, "You jerk," and I go to shove him back. And the moment I go to shove him back, he just sort of turns and sort of twists his hands like a ninja that he was. And next thing you know, I'm off balance, the room is spinning, and I am flying through the air, and I'm smacking into the ground. Now, I've been doing martial arts for years, and I've been thrown. I know what it's like to be thrown. I know what it feels like. I know those things, but this one was different. Because normally, if I'm thrown, it's because somebody grabs me and they twist their hips and they take me over. But you see, he was moving into the throw before I was doing anything. It was almost as if he knew exactly what was going to happen before it did. It was almost like it was sort of magical. And I sort of got up, and I was puzzled, and because I knew that felt so much different, and this is such a high level technique. And he kind of asked me to kind of like tell everybody what just happened, and of course I embarrassed. I'm like, yeah, I just got thrown on the ground. But I was like, I'm confused. I feel like you threw me before, like you were ahead of the game. And he said, the technique works because of simple, basic human nature. You see, I shoved you, and human nature is two things. There's only two sides here. One, you're gonna let me shove you. You're gonna take it. In that case, it's over. I shoved you and that's it. Or two, you are going to get angry and shove me back. And because I only have to pick one or the other, I know 50% of what you're going to do, and you fell for it. You fell for it. I shoved you, and you came in to shove me back, and I knew exactly where your hands were going to be. I knew exactly how to flip you over. Now, on one level, this is a cool idea. Don't use this for evil and go throwing anybody. But there's another level to this. There is sort of an unveiling, a sort of magician showing you how the trick is done, to the fundamental motor of humanity since there's been humanity. That for many of us, when it comes to conflict, when it comes to things, there's only two ways. When it comes to a disagreement with you and a friend, or you and a coworker, when it comes to you being wronged by somebody you trusted, when it comes to your money, when it comes to small things like a disagreement, to big things like genocide, war. For many of us, in all of these things, whether it's personal or even political, there's only two ways. There's one or the other. What's fascinating about Jesus is Jesus lived in a time 2,000 years ago where we were doing the same human things that we do now. And what's interesting is one of those things is in the time of Jesus, there's something very important to understand. And I brought this up several times, but it's so crucial that we understand it. Is that Jesus' world was wrapped up in much of the same problems that we face today. Maybe it just had different names and masks, but at the heart it's the same stuff. And when it comes to all this, there's this interesting text in the New Testament written by this guy named Matthew. He was a follower of Jesus. And he records a sermon Jesus gave called the Sermon on the Mount. And in this sermon, Jesus says something radical that sort of steps into everything I've just stated. And he says, if anyone was to strike you on the right cheek, turn to them the left also, or turn to them the other also. Maybe you've heard this before. We literally say, turn the other cheek. Now, unfortunately, for most of us, when we come across this teaching, there's two responses. One is pacifism. Remember I told you, like in the technique where my teacher pushed me, there was either I'm going to be pushed and I just take it and sort of drop my head, or I push back. So there are, for some people, when they hear this, there's a pacifistic sort of response to this of like, well, Jesus teaches if somebody was to ever strike you, let them. Let it happen. And then there's another group of people, when they hear this, the response is sort of like, to look the other way, because for them, no, if somebody strikes you, you hit them back. I mean, I'm not going to sit around with my friends. I'm going to talk about, like, if somebody hits you, don't hit them back. I mean, that's not a macho, masculine thing to do, or whatever it might be. I mean, for many of us, that doesn't coincide with my morality. I'll go to church, I'll do the Jesus thing, but the whole turning the cheek thing, I'm sorry, I'm out on that. Unfortunately, both of these methods ignore what this teaching is trying to say. So let me take you back to something revolutionary, something you might have missed. So in the time of Jesus, thousands of years ago, the right hand was considered like the powerful hand. It was a symbolism of strength and power. So you might have heard things like the right hand of justice or the right hand of God. Maybe you've heard these words. And in 2,000 years ago, the right hand was a symbol of power. The left hand was kind of a symbol of weakness. It was a symbol of shame. It was considered, it was used for personal hygiene. I'll let you kind of put that in there of what that means and what you might do with the left hand instead of the right. And so what Jesus says is somebody was to strike you on the right side of the cheek. So let me show you. So this is my right side, right? Now if somebody was to punch me on the right side of my cheek, so here I am, and now I flip over like this. If somebody was to strike the right side of my cheek, it would involve their left hand to hit me. So something isn't right here. So in Jesus' time, there was a hierarchy. There was a strong understanding of who was better than everybody else. And everybody was fully aware of this. Everybody knew if you're a woman, there was a certain area of society, a certain ring on the ladder that you existed on. If you were a slave, if you're poor, if you're rich, if you're Jew, if you're Roman, everybody knew where you were on the social ladder because they were just simply people that were better than you. There were people that mattered more than you. And so in this society 2,000 years ago that we can't connect with in any way today, wink, right? In this society 2,000 years ago, if you were to punch somebody, it was considered that whoever you were punching was equal to you. So you punched somebody who was equal to you. So if you're a wealthy, powerful person and you punch somebody, well, you were angry with them and you're in a fight, but that communicated to everybody that they were equal to you. But for you to slap somebody, especially with the back of your hand, was considered a statement that I am better than you, I matter more than you, and you are less than me. Jesus says, if somebody was to strike you on the right side of your cheek, that would involve somebody with the back of their left hand striking you. See, it's not just about somebody hitting you. It's about somebody making a declaration that I am greater and I am better than you. You don't matter, I do, so I'm going to strike you with the back of my hand on your right cheek. Now, for many of our society, for many of our thinking, for all of these things, for most of us, there are two options. One, if somebody strikes you, you take it. You drop your head, you say nothing, you allow it. Or option two, you hit them back. Jesus says, turn to them the other cheek also. So this creates an interesting situation. So let's say you're a slave owner. You're a Roman man. You've got these slaves under you. They've disrespected you. You walked over with your left hand and you slapped them across the face. Because you're better than them, they're less than you. They need to listen because they don't matter as much as you do. So you slap them. Imagine that slave turning the left cheek. Now, in order to hit them again, because you're inviting them to hit you again. For them to hit you again means either one, they strike you with their right hand. If they strike you with the right hand, they are declaring to everyone around they are equal to you. Are you following me? If you turn the left cheek to them and they want to slap you, they have to slap you with their left hand, which would be humiliating. That's weakness. Or do nothing, which in that moment, when you turn and invite them to hit you again and you back down, you again lose power. So either they are your equal or you are humiliating yourself as weak, or you are backing down to their power. No matter what the situation is, by simply just turning your head, you are calling into question power. You see, in our society today, it's either when there's injustice, you do nothing and you just allow it. Just be quiet, stop, you're annoying, you're loud, nobody wants to hear you whining and complaining. Stop being a victim. Or two, you fight back and you hit them back. Let's get back at them. They thought they could do this to us. Let's do it back to them. And unfortunately, that response just keeps this violence going. There's this thing called outrageous overshadowing. Basically, it's this idea when somebody hurts you or victimizes you, and you respond in that hurt, in that anger, in that confusion and frustration, you respond back in such a way that the abuser takes your response to victimize themselves. so that in doing so, they overshadow, using your response, their own behavior that provoked it. Long story short, basically, through your reaction, they get a free pass for what they did in the first place. It never even gets discussed. Jesus steps into all of this and says, and maybe you might have missed it, the Jesus way is the third way. It is not allowing yourself to be slapped, and it is not slapping back. It is a courageous and creative way through goodness to just simply turn your head and call all of the problem, all of the hierarchy, all of the ways that we can make other people feel like they don't matter. It is a passionate, good way to present the structure of power and imperialism and call it all into question, because the person who did the first slap with the back of their hand all of a sudden doesn't know what to do. Because they have to ask themselves, am I less than you? Am I equal to you? Or am I a coward? Friends, the way of Jesus is the way of denying ourselves and taking up our crosses. The way of Jesus is the realization that the entire humanity has been this idea of either you're going to get pushed around or you're going to be pushing back. And Jesus introduces and forces himself into this society and says, neither works. We have to both stop injustice and not create an opportunity for people to call out injustice on you. There has to be a way to point out the wrong without becoming the wrong. And it takes a greater courage than either. It takes a greater creativity than either as well. You see, this isn't just simply instructions of what to do when somebody strikes you. It's not just simply turning the other cheek. It is an invitation to a brand new way of seeing conflict. And it's going to take a whole lot of thought. It's going to take a whole lot of our time, but for many of us, it's an eye-opening, awakening moment of that I can get on board with. Friends, may you know that you don't have to be stuck in either submitting to injustice or becoming unjust yourself. That there is a way that we can point out to the things in this world that are destructive and hurtful and wrong without creating a wrong somewhere else. And I want to end with this, my friends. May you also not be judgmental of those who haven't found a third way yet, those who feel that they have been wronged and they don't matter, people who have been sort of, the gaze is sort of skipped. Don't be judgmental on how they respond. Because when you step into this third way, there's no coming back. So, my friends, I hope you enjoy this time. May you have an amazing day. May grace, peace,